Emails into indosportpodcast at independent.ie. We will be in Vicar Street tomorrow. We're pretty much at capacity now, bar, I think, final handful, almost literally. If you want to come along, Ticketmaster, search Indosport and join us. We'll have Tony Adams there. We will have Damien Delaney there and Gary Breen there as well. I spent much of yesterday, when you were recording Yet More Lines content, reading the 2 Tony Adams books. He's a phenomenally interesting fella. I think it's going to be really good evening, actually. You know, some of these evenings are a little bit, you know, with certain footballers in particular, there's an after dinner quality, speaker dinner quality, and you know, you tee them up and they tell the jokes, and you know, it kind of all works, but it does feel a little bit late showy. This won't be that. This will be, I think, very interesting conversation. He's you can just tell he's done a lot of work on himself and thought a lot about himself, and he's in a great place now, a man at peace with the world in a very interesting way. Not to mention the phenomenal career, you know. Debut just after his 17th birthday. Arsenal captain at 21, 4 league titles. Everyone knows Adams on the pitch. And then we'll have Damien and Gary. Gary, of course, was a huge Arsenal fan growing up, so I suspect he'll just be...
Yeah, he'll be in his element.
Staring lovingly at Tony for a lot of the evening. So that's tomorrow, and we will put out the, I suspect, Adams interview section on Thursday. So that's the plan. Ticketmaster, search Indosport if you want to come along. We've a fair few things to get through. I mentioned you were recording a Lions piece yesterday, fresh from your Lions piece on Saturday. So
I'll have withdrawals. I don't know how I'll go back to a regular civilian life.
Well, I was just looking at it. It's funny. They're still pushing the merch. Like, it's almost trending on Twitter. There's a 60% discount. I did go on. There was some nice stuff there, which was quite cheap. So they're trying to empty the shelves.
The pop-up line shop that was there for a few days is now the pop-up Oasis shop. Is this just now the location?
On Grafton
Stevens
Street.
Green, the Well.
I'm talking online. There's
Yeah.
like these kind of old school, like big collared lines shirts, which were kind of 90, and now they're down to 30. All that. I don't know. I'm doing their work for them. Ugh.
Beanbag chairs, though, they look fairly comfortable that Tyke Furlong and the other guys were relaxing on during the lightning delay.
Just to put a full stop in the series, you've pretty much done that. We won't do another piece about it. Obviously, a strange series in many ways. I don't know if they're a great Lions team. Can they be regarded as such? Like, in some respects, and I suspect Joe Schmidt will do this because he often takes metrics and tells you things were more competitive than they were, or things weren't as bad, or actually your criticism was wrong. So if you take the 3 tests, the aggregate score was 68-67, you know? You take the last 2 tests, Australia led for the entirety of the 2 tests, bar 60 seconds at the end of the second one. And so there's this sense of, no, this was competitive and a great series. And I just don't feel that way. It just, you can hit me with the facts, but it doesn't feel to me like it was a competitive series. The second test was brilliant. It was a great test match for sure. But then Sunday, the way the Australians won, the way the Lions players are sitting around during the rain delay, I don't know, would they be exhibiting the same body language if that was the first test and there was a rain delay somehow? Maybe they would. Yeah. I just don't think so.
A lot of people are saying, well, if the Tisano decision had gone the other way, the Australia win this series. I'm like, there's a long road to get to the final whistle of the third test if that takes place. They prepare differently. They're not in the beer on Saturday night for one, so the preparation would 100% been better. And even after the Dan Sheehan try after 45 minutes, I think Australia outscored them by 18 points for the rest of the series. So I think it's more competitive than what you think personally. Like, the first half was the real outlier of the series. The rest of the series of 2.5 matches was actually quite competitive. The Lions aren't a great team. I'm not sure if that matters, really. I know, like, the people are making, are they a good or are they a great team? They won the series. That's what will be remembered. But no, they're not a great team. They only really hit their straps for 50, 60 minutes of 240 minutes, probably. But it was more interesting test series than I thought it would be. You don't seem to think that, but I think that the 3 games were more interesting than I thought maybe going into.
It picked up a lot after the first test. Like, I write the second half of the first test largely off.
Yeah.
And then I couldn't emphasize again that the second test was a great test match. But then watching on Saturday, and maybe the delay and everything just took all momentum out of it.
I thought that added to it.
Did you?
Yeah.
It felt very flat. It was like, oh, this thing is just winding down. And I couldn't shake the fact that the series had been won. I know the Lions really, quote unquote, wanted to do 3-zip, but it just didn't feel that way to me. I'm talking vibes and feels over.
The second test was the only game in reality that was actually had that bite in it, because the game was still there to be won. The series was still there to be won. Like, third test, I don't agree with the notion that they had to win 3-0 or else X or Y. Like, the series was done at 2-0. What I come from the Lions' perspective after that is immaterial to a degree, I think.
Credit to Australia. They kept
they
going,
were good,
you know.
And Schmidt can spin that really well. They play with South Africa in 2 weeks' time. Like, he can really say, we were actually really, really close to winning this series.
Yeah. Ben Earl was talking about this series. So the English back rower, it's been a life-changing experience, he said. It's been the highlight of my life. And then he thought, oh, crap. Oh, certainly my rugby playing life, he added quickly. But I mean, the highlight of my life, certainly my rugby playing life. I've made friends for life, memories for life. It has been completely transformative for me. And people are saying, like, okay, go on. And he said, I'm a far better player now. I've learned so much. And he's an established great player to begin with, you know. So he's talking about, like, I've just learned to go with the flow on this tour. This is a real Andy Farrell thing, you know. Andy Farrell's a we thrive in chaos type. So give us an example of that, Ben. Well, he said, we're trying to go 3-0 up. This is the match on Saturday. And we had to change buses. It's amazing how often buses have problems around sporting occasions, isn't it? We had to change buses, and you should have seen the group. I've been involved in groups where that would have thrown the boys off. But the boys were just laughing, having the crack. It was genius. So he's concluded.
Oh, God.
Yeah, you bide your time. He's concluded what he's learned on this trip is just get out of your own way. You can overthink so many things. When you're playing so often, you're not going to be able to do every rep or review every opposition. Just get out of your own way and just play. Yeah. On Andy Farrell. Andy Farrell has made me fully believe in how good I am. Every time he talks to the group, I'm like, I'll do anything for that man. So, like, effusive. You know, this is like Guardian jumping off the page, you know, and he can't wait to get back to England to bring back the Farrell, go with the flow approach. So that was one kind of standout takeaway from one of the players. Dan Sheehan's been given a 4-match suspension following his clear out of Tom Lynagh, reduced to 3 owing to tackle school, and one of them's a pre-season game. Okay, it counts.
A pre-season game and 2 URC games that he wouldn't have played. So in effect, he escaped a red card and has escaped a ban as well, in reality.
And very finally, just to mention, for much of the last decade, the talk was Rugby Australia is in huge debt. Rugby Australia is now debt-free, courtesy of this Lions tour. So over the 5 weeks, 450,000 fans paid in, and paid a lot of money in to these games. That's not to mention all the other ancillary monies which came in. So Rugby Australia is going to take $100 million in profit and wipe off the 60 million Australian dollars debt that they were carrying for the last while, and which was really a big issue for them. Like in 2013, the tour generated a 35 million profit, so it's gone up threefold, really, in effect, to 100 million. Just phenomenal money. And, you know, that all kind of, it's a bit of a cliched line that, you know, the Lions go around to these countries every 12 years and it's a big boost to the coffers. I mean, kind of existential crisis averted here for Rugby Australia.
That's mad money. I'm not even sure what's the breakdown like? Because it's 10 matches, 9 matches in Australia. I just don't see how it could generate that much. But look, it did. Like, South Africa really missed out in 2021, like, behind closed doors.
Yeah, massively. So Rugby Australia is just kind of punching the air after this tour. You know, they by far absolutely didn't disgrace themselves. Reasonably competitive, interesting tour, and they've made a whole ton of wedge. So that's the Lions. Did it get it? You didn't grab you at all, really, did it?
No, no. I mean, it's
not meant to grab you. You're not.
No, it's. Listen, last time I was on talking about rugby, like, there's talk about sort of the. Sometimes, you know, you haven't grown up around it, or you just don't get some of the traditions of the sport. But it exists for a reason, because there's the history and tradition going back. It seems to me a little bit, there's a sort of a cult-like quality to the whole thing. Like, everyone, it just seems to be about everyone having a good time, you know. And you know, maybe that's it. Like, it's a real all coming together. You know, you can laud Andy Farrell and talk about it being amazing, but presumably you're on the opposite side to him next year. And it's just, it's an interesting sort of thing. You know, the journalists are all having a lovely time, you know, together, all coming round, and it's a Lions tour as an experience, and everyone just puts their shirts down and puts on the red jersey and enjoys it. And like you could be cynical about it from my remove, but it clearly obviously is working. Like it's a phenomenon. Like you can't argue with figures and facts like that. It's, you know, so sometimes you step back from it and it's like they're all talking about it there like a J1 summer or something. Oh, this was just, they're going to be talking about it in years to come about this time, and maybe you just had to be there. You know, you have to be there in the moment. And I think even some of the coverage of the tour is very much everyone, you know, in the club going round together, sharing this experience and this event, which would be different, I think, to other codes and how that maybe operates, you know, and that's maybe sometimes inaccessible if you're not necessarily a rugby fan. So you're probably just not going to necessarily relate to that, but clearly it has its own history and story and debates. And look, it's not going to be for me, but okay. Yeah, they all had. Listen, it just seems to be about like a lot of the stuff around the Lions game in Dublin. Everyone's just having a lovely time. Everyone's out in the street having a nice time.
Only you could say that like it was a terrible thing.
But it says that's it. But it just seems to be, you know, maybe it's just about enjoyment. It's about networking. It's about having fun. It's like
about networking.
But it just seems to be a very nice experience, like an Oasis concert or something vibe. You know, you got your ticket and everyone's going. It's grand. And then they'll go back and, you know, I think some of the players are going off on holiday together now from different nations, and it's lovely.
They're already planning the reunion in 12 years.
They're having loads of fun. Then they have to obviously go back and to be these really serious mortal rivals next year. But then every so often you just get to be on the same side as the people you're against the whole time.
There aren't mortal rivals anymore in sport anyway. Sure, like they'll all just be mates on the pitch.
Maybe it's just more honest. That's it. It's a more representation of it, you know.
Yeah.
So, look.
Summing up, then you will remember it as a what Lions tour?
It'll be the second test. In a one word, middling, I'd say. Warm-up games were pretty much entirely forgettable. That day in Dublin was a great day out. I know John's taking the piss, but it actually was.
No, it seems like it was. I mean,
yeah.
Did you do much networking?
That's all everyone says.
I did a bit of networking in the Viva press room. It'll be the second test, I think. You know, in 10 years' time, I'll be like, oh, that was an absolutely fantastic game, and one of the great like Lions games, or one of the great international games I've seen.
I think it saves the tour.
I think it's one of those things, though. It strikes me, and I did listen to a bit of your chat with Rory yesterday, that people who are watching it at home, watching it on TV, versus, and this can exist with a lot of events, but to me it seems to be one in particular, whereas those being there are very much sort of caught up in the moment of it and the event, and they're living it, and maybe with the sort of the TV audience who were floating between it week to week, it didn't seem to have grabbed them. Yeah. I heard you say earlier on, like people in your sort of group or your golf club chat or something about
driving range buddies.
You know, whoever, you know, where you get to where you feel the pulse of the nation.
None
like
of those people
range.
were my friends. I was eavesdropping on them.
You were eavesdropping on them.
And this was after the first
You
test.
were eavesdropping? You claimed they were talking to you.
Sorry, no, they weren't talking to me.
Oh yeah, you framed it like I was taking the temperature of various driving range buddies.
Sorry. They were all buddies. I go to the driving range strictly alone.
Oh,
I need to work on my game. I'm not talking.
All I would say is that some of the
dropping eaves.
Yeah.
Some of the newer rugby fans in my life who you become very aware of them watching the Ireland games. I haven't sort of been aware of them and their conversations around it. Doesn't seem to have grabbed it. But then you see the coverage from there. It's like, wow, there seems to be a distinction between the home audience and those on the tour, and that can happen covering a lot of stuff.
Well, I spent a lot of time chatting to Rud, but like I was divorced from like the enjoyment of being in Australia. Like, you know, so Rud was obviously getting that whole
different for whole
game. Yeah, I was just watching matches and chatting to Rud about the rugby, whereas I was obviously not getting to partake in any of that fun. So I was kind of just judging it on what I was seeing, which for the most part wasn't that inspiring.
Yeah, okay. Eamon Dunphy has turned 80. And he sat down with Gary Doyle of the Mirror and had really interesting chat. And a good portion of it's up on YouTube. So, you know, he reflects on many things. His punditry career at RTE, which lasted from 1978 to 2018. That's hard to get your head around.
It's a hell of a stint.
Isn't it just? So, you know, they cover all sorts of ground. Like of the Rod Liddle thing, he says, it was a desperate thing to say. I apologised to Rod on Liveline. He accepted my apology. I was mortified at myself. So, you know, he's in reflective form. And one of the questions Gary asked him, which I thought elicited a very striking answer, was about John Delaney and the extent to which Dunphy is open to the accusation that he didn't really criticise John Delaney or call him out until, you know, it was far too late and it was self-evident that the FAI was kind of in a ruinous situation. So do you have regrets over that?
Yes, I do. through John Giles, who had a closer relationship with Delaney, I got sort of sucked into that. He was getting me tickets for matches and stuff, and it was regrettable. It was wrong. It was lazy, and I deserved, no respect for that. And I wasn't trying to hide it. I declared myself, to be getting tickets off him, for example, and taking a sympathetic view of him. That was part of his con. And definitely Delaney, fooled me.
Yeah.
And I was foolish. And I got sucked in to a relationship where I could ring him up and say, I can have 2 tickets for a Manchester United match. And that was, and that's what I was doing. Then when what he really was became apparent, I was obviously appalled. But I did out myself. No one said, we caught you. Yeah. I said, this is wrong. I've got to out myself. Because if someone else had been doing it, I'd have been after them.
And you went to his 50th birthday party as well?
I went to his 50th birthday party with John.
Is that a source of embarrassment?
It is a source of embarrassment, yeah. Yeah, it was embarrassing. Deeply embarrassing.
And that was Gary Doyle's voice you heard asking the question about the birthday party. So I think generally the panel and Dunphy lauded, loved, missed, celebrated. The Delaney thing probably maybe a bigger fly in the ointment as time goes on when people revisit that panel, do you think?
Yeah, I wrote about it when when Eamon Dunphy it was announced he was leaving the panel, I think. And look, yeah, I probably celebrated on that basis. I thought the RTE panel during that period, it's just a real shame because everything you say about the status of the RTE panel is true in the sense, I think I've heard previous conversations about it, that people would run down from the press room in the old Lansdowne Road or to when it was in Croke Park or whatever to hear what they were saying at half time. And even I started travelling to Ireland games in 2006 and as in working wise, and so often the debate, the agenda was set from the TV studio, and what happened around that time. At that time, Steve Staunton was the manager, and the RTE panel were very critical of John Delaney in the Steve Staunton era, and then all of a sudden, Trapattoni comes in, and Liam Brady's is in the backroom team. And obviously Giles was one of the headhunters, and Eamon Dunphy was one of the interview people. Giles and Dunphy from that point onwards seemed to be quite positive about John Delaney. And for me, the great shame is there were people throughout that time immersed in Irish football who would have been, and not just people in the media, but just other people who would have been quite wary of where things were going and would have had expressed reservations about where things were going, but nobody had the platform that the RTE panel had. Nobody had the platform that they had, and if their voice had been paying attention to stuff that was going on at that time, and what I would say as well, if you read back into the archives of the Sunday Independent in the 80s and the 90s, like Eamon Dunphy, an outstanding journalist, incredibly on the finger on the pulse of stuff. Clearly, someone who reads. You can tell even from his work in sort of recent years in terms of the Stand and various things, and his broadcasting. The Last Word, exceptional. Clearly, someone who reads and listens and stuff. There was stuff there all the time about John Delaney's FAI and what was really happening. Quite often there were times around the Vantage Club stuff in 2010, 2011, it was there. It was there if you have your critical faculties. And it's not just, it's not quite a situation here where it's ex-pros who sometimes we look to our ex-pros to be spokesmen on those issues, and maybe not really a fair thing, they're but this is a little bit different. Like, this is someone who's a footballer turned journalist who had the most powerful voice, you could argue, at that time. And if they'd, for whatever reason, been on top of it and been asking questions about it and looking into it and been willing to sort of not just accept whatever spin was being put to them, you know, it could have been incredibly influential. So for me, I recall the fondness of watching them on TV and stuff, but I couldn't get past that. Like, they failed Irish football in that time, and these are like the gods of Irish football. And I think, to be honest, look, I see what he's saying now. I think in recent years, like, Eamon, some of his stuff is been a lot more conciliatory. Like, he's saying very different things to what he said a couple of years ago about Irish football. Like, I think he's probably working with Gary there in the start, and maybe he's just these different people in his ear, like, talking to him about stuff. Like, I will say, like, 2019, when stuff started to break again, like, John Delaney was sort of March 2019 when this is happening. Like, Eamon Dunphy is interviewed in the Sunday Independent, and he's saying things like, I've never accepted hospitality from Delaney. I know the guy, I haven't spoken to him for years. All this stuff. I mean, that's 2 years after his 50th birthday party, which he was at. You know, he's saying stuff in his interview at 80 about, well, I took tickets from him, I declared it. He didn't. He didn't. So, I look, a legendary figure in Irish sporting life, very entertaining, and as I said, a brilliant journalist, brilliant writer, but was so asleep at the wheel with that stuff, and unforgivably so. And I do find this sort of club out there just a little bit disingenuous, because it's not, or maybe disingenuous is the wrong word, but it's that again is sort of not providing. It's not accurate. It's not in line with the facts of the situation. Like, I totally get why people would miss that panel because it was so entertaining. But that was a really important time. Like, that was a really important time in Irish football, and people who did speak up were sidelined. And you have these guys in our national broadcaster in the studio being watched by a massive audience, and they had the power. They had the power more so than anyone to raise awareness and to look into it. And they have the ability, in his case, to do it as an outstanding, as I said, current affairs person, but didn't.
Yeah.
So it's fine now, but it's too late.
I think in his case in particular, maybe more so than Giles.
Yeah, in his case, I think. No, I have to hold my hands up to that. You can't.
I don't think
it's
Giles,
almost like his ability.
Yeah, I don't think Giles would present himself as journalistic. You know, the football man. I'm talking about the football.
I do accept that. Yeah,
Brady probably similarly, but I take your point on Dunphy. And to be fair, even based on that clip alone, I suspect he would take your point. I mean, at once.
Oh, hopefully so. Yeah, it's just
he said himself, "I was foolish." You know.
Yeah.
I think is what was from your point of view, or the point you just made rather. What was unfortunate, I think, in the timing is that post Staunton, where they were critical of Delaney, and who knows, maybe Delaney thought then, well, I need to get a handle on this before like the thing turns on me totally, and Man United tickets and things happen, yeah. But they went to trap, and that was, you know, if you're just taking a top down look at Irish football, and if you make the assumption, it's easy to make the assumption that if the top is good, other things beneath the pyramid must be okay. Trap, which was a marked improvement on Staunton, which led to making the Euros, a great appointment, a celebrated appointment, Dennis O'Brien involved, but you know, like, this is Delaney making it all work, and geez, he's powerful at UEFA. There could have been a veneer of like, maybe it's not as dysfunctional as you think. And then into O'Neill, which on paper was another like good appointment. I think it's unfortunate things were going reasonably okay on the pitch during that period. I suspect if things were falling apart on the pitch, might have prompted in those studio debates more bigger conversations.
But when it did,
Irish
Joe,
football.
when it did, like at one point, Eamon Dunphy, and I remember this distinctly, suggested that Trapattoni was making subs like a drunk in one game. It was Italy away. That is a thing that happened. I referenced before coming back to the airport after that draw in Italy, thinking that was a great result, and the taxi driver slating it, and it was all the basis of. No,
but I'm just saying, I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying it was from with the point of view that you're trying to put out there. It was actually unfortunate that they were making European championships, and there was a veneer of things are okay. Actually, it allowed it maybe to happen a little bit more.
Well, no, but what I would say around that time is that people got a bit sick of trap towards the end, and
Sure.
like again, it shifted to the panel very in that time. It shifted the debate away from what was really going on
Yeah.
to and it's the most accessible stuff, but the pantomime stuff about the manager, and like we have this cult of the manager cemented in Irish football now that. Like if the team is going well, the manager's a genius, and if the team's going badly, the manager's an idiot. And like it was perpetuated by the panel. It's like the really shallow.
That's everywhere.
No,
Around the world, that's everywhere.
You say that's
It
not,
is.
well, but not everywhere around the world is Ireland, Joe. Not everywhere around the world is as dysfunctional.
No, I appreciate
football
that. But I
organisation
wouldn't.
as that.
We often go, we're cult of the manager. Look at England. Look at any country. They're obsessed with the manager. The manager's talking point in every sport. To be fair, like I think it's a fair thing to say we're not exceptional in that regard. They didn't cement that. That's always going to be a thing. I guarantee you. From Jack Charlton, we talk about Hamer now.
I think it's an extreme version of that in Ireland. I always believe there's been an extreme version of that, and I think I wouldn't change my view on that. I think
and how do you explain England's obsession with their manager by comparison?
No, but listen, it does look. There's particulars of England as well, because you have the stuff around the overseas manager and you have the certain voices, but they don't have. Like England over the last 10, 15 years, they have a very successful academy thriving system. So yes, they're probably looking at the manager at the top going, why have these managers not harnessed some of these world-class players winning Champions League and Steven Gerrard with their clubs?
But that proves your point. When things are being even done well or badly, there's an obsession with the manager. We're going off on a bit of a...
Okay, we're getting stuck in this sort of...
It doesn't really matter whether we're obsessed with it or not.
What I'm saying is that like the RT panel at that time needed one voice. I understand, like you just needed one voice a little bit more in tune with what was going on. And I didn't feel sad when it ended, because I just thought it's great, but like the game here is heading for disaster, and we are now living through a version of that at the moment. And it took so long, and it needed like Mark Ty, and it needed that stuff to come. And that's I know, for people then say, well, I didn't know. It's like, well, I'm sorry, if it was there all the way through. It was there all the way through, and I always felt that the panel was incredibly entertaining, but probably divorced to an extent from a lot of what was going on. I think it was important at that time. I do think it was important, and look, maybe that could be a very I can accept that may seem like a very sort of militant, sort of like fundamentalist view of the whole thing. And that, look, this is entertainment primarily. Like, people just want to watch the show and that's what people miss. I totally understand that. The showbiz quality, as much as I would be annoyed by it, I'd still find myself tuning in to see what they've said. But it's just a shame, because like he is someone who was such an amazing figure in Irish life, and on top of stuff. If you read some of his columns in the 80s, like hilarious, like really well on top of the quirks of administrators, what's going on. Like when it came to Irish football, really on top of the minutiae, and then it almost gets to a stage where it's like, it doesn't matter. It mattered more than ever at that time.
I don't think it's his legacy, though. I think. Insofar as I don't like disagree.
I know it's not going to be his legacy.
I think if you poll a cross section of like 100 listeners, I'd say only 5% of them might even put this near the top. I would say
that's probably true. Will, yeah.
I'd say I don't think it would be top of mind for a lot of people. A lot of people probably wouldn't even know what relationship Dunphy had with John Delaney, or if they were particularly close, unless you're really, really into.
Well, that's the first time I've heard the tickets thing.
Irish soccer.
That's why I just grabbed the clip. I thought that was an interesting clip. No, I don't. It's not his legacy.
No, I know it's not. I'm not saying for one second it is, but I'm just.
But we're discussing the theme he brought up in the clip.
Yeah,
that's why we're on it.
Yeah.
What is his legacy?
Well, I think, look, as I've said there, I mean, to be the wallpaper of a sort of a nation sporting debate for a period of time, like that is the legacy. Like, I'm not denying that. Like, I think it's tainted, in my view, by what happened at the end. And I say the end, you're talking 10 to 15 years. But that leaving that to the side, yeah, of course. I mean, if you're a cultural reference point, like, and I know he also, and this is the thing for me, like, he's beloved by a lot of, say, even a lot of my journalistic peers, or like, he was very good, I think, to a lot of like broadcasters and people coming up in that world as well too. Like, an incredible writer as well in terms of his books and his biographies and work with people. And often, look, people talk about the RTE panels now being quite sort of bland and vanilla. I think one of Dunphy's lines is consistency is is overrated, you know, and that can be true. Like, who are the people that stir you to have opinions? It doesn't mean they're always right. Like, it means that they can be massively hypocritical. And I think, look at that. I think, you know, there's a rap sheet there which suggests that he was. But look, that's entertainment. Life is short. You need that is his legacy. Maybe I'm the wrong person to ask about it, because I'm just annoyed still by the state that the game is in, and that I think there were people who have voices who would have loved to have the platform that was granted to them.
He's one of those characters that piece, I think, was like Eamon Dunphy at 80. Like, you'd read Eamon Dunphy at 81, Eamon Dunphy at 82, and just a snapshot of his thoughts on various issues. And I'm sure at 70 and at 60 there was big profile feature pieces as well, because he is just an interesting person to hear. Even putting back his own thoughts to him on, like, Ronaldo, say, 20 years ago, it's kind of funny to
League of Ireland, Rovers beat Derry. You know, Derry had a good June. I don't think anyone fully believed Derry.
No.
But the door is shut. 10 points clear with 10 games remaining. So a 5th and 6th coming for Rovers. European action is where it's at the moment. So Rovers have 2 rounds left in Europe to make the Conference League stage. On Thursday, they go to Kosovo. Their first leg tie is against Balkany. And if they win that, then they'll play the winners of Larne, or most likely Santa Clara, Portuguese side, and then Shelburne. And it shows the benefit really of being champions. You were mentioning this before we came on air. So the draw was in Neon yesterday. They're in Croatia on Wednesday, tomorrow, to play Rijeka. And then if they win that, they play Greek side PAOK or Wolfsberger of Austria. But they do have the safety net of the Conference League, which is what Rovers are in. Shells would fall into Conference League, this Europa League tie they have this week, where they would face either Faroe Islands team or Linfield again.
It's amazing. Like,
I think the GAA gets criticism for its structures.
But the whole last week, that's not the whole last week, there was people on to me last weekend, because people, if we're into this, just study the permutations to see what might be coming. And they were like,
this to you with love. Keep this so brief.
Short. I will listen. I will. But in simple terms, people were like, can Shells play Linfield again? And I was looking at it going, I can't see any reason in the regulations why they can't.
Yeah.
But it strikes me as slightly unusual. So I spent a lot of time looking for precedents and previous examples, but there was nothing to stop it. And
Has it happened before?
No, not in. I think teams have maybe played in the qualifiers and then met in the groups of a competition, but not in the qualifying phase. But look, that's because UEFA are trying to make it easier for champions to get into the group stage. There's a very narrow champions format where, you know, as you get knocked out, the champions still end up in the same corridor together. So it's a surprise it hasn't happened before now, but it is a very likely scenario, because I think Linfield are heavy favourites to beat the team from the Faroes, and Shells I think they have a chance against Rijeka, but if they don't, which is crazy. I mean, it would be crazy to think that you could play the champions of Northern Ireland twice to get £4 million to get the dream. And it just goes to show, as you said, Joe, being champions is everything. Like Rovers, Shamrock Rovers, to get into the same competition that Shells want to be in ultimately. But they have to beat the 5th best team from Portugal. They're playing a team from Kosovo this week who are pretty handy as well. But then you have to try and beat, and some of the other teams like Rovers could have got, and they were seeded, were very strong. Like some great like Pats are playing Besiktas this week, you know, and Pats, that's in the 3rd round. But if you're a champion, you know, it's all good. And the one thing I would say is just look into the future. Shamrock Rovers are going to win the league this year, and with their seeding, it would be astonishing if they're not in the groups next year. And it's real, like they've got a hell of a chance to just keep qualifying for those groups, winning the league, qualifying for the groups. And Shells need to do it this year to give them some financial muscle, because Rovers are going to make the groups next year. Yeah, it's the way things are set up. It's all seedings.
Pats, Besiktas, Tala Stadium. Thursday, if they lose that tie, they fall back to
Pats are Pats. This is the thing. Pats and Rovers have zero margin for error, so Pats have to beat Besiktas on Thursday, and that's Tabby Abraham. That's it's a multi-million euro team, and Solskjaer's under pressure now. He's under real pressure because they lost in the Europa League. They are dropping down into this.
It's quite, when you think of it from an Irish point of view, and maybe it'll get this way pretty soon, but the qualifying structures are quite labyrinthine. Someone's going to email
about that.
And it's hard to keep track of who's in what. It's hard to remember the names of the teams they're playing against at times, and it's hard to know what game is on what TV station, or if at all.
Yeah.
I think none of these games are actually on this week.
No.
But I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if all the second legs are on. It's that kind of situation. It is difficult, I think, for it to just reach. It should be like European summer qualification thing should actually jump up and kind of grab us all. You know, it should be the month of July, August is when the Irish teams try to make it into Europe. And maybe it'll become that. But at the moment, it's like, it's hard to keep track of everything. It doesn't really land the way it should.
It's crazy, but I mean, all the permutations running around in your head yesterday, and I was looking at the draws the last couple of days, and you know, I'm really into it.
Yeah.
But there's all these permutations and scenarios, and someone says, "Well, what about this?" And like UEFA are also constantly trying to figure out, well, so Rovers playing a team from Kosovo, they now can't play a team from Serbia, and they can't because of conflicts and wars, and there's a constant sort of thing going on with it. It's my favorite series of the year. I love it.
Yeah.
I love these sort of Wednesdays, Thursdays, was games all over Europe, and you can be sent in any direction. But I understand that from the sort of floating voter, it can be hard to get it. I think I know that there has been a discussion, and there are discussions. I think, you know, could they bundle that stuff and make sure that it's properly done on TV in the coming years? Because it actually is. There's to me, the stories in this are way more interesting than the regular league games that are on at the moment. Like, you're playing against. Like Rovers are potentially playing this team, Santa Clara, who came fifth in the Portuguese league last year, but they're based in the Azores. Like, it's one of the furthest trips you could ever do, and their team is 90 or 80% Brazilian. Like, and it's just, you're learning about all these stories and characters and personalities, and it's what I love about football. It's the variety of it. But yeah, these games are playing out on live streams, and you know, sort of. Yeah, like people, it's very good if you're into it, but it's like a subculture thing. And meanwhile, you have the Virgin TV deal now, which is great. You have all the games on Friday nights, but these big European games are a little bit old world in terms of where they sit, you know. Yeah. But I think the last 2 weeks of this month, August, like, I think it should be very clear. Then it's like Shells are playing this game. If they lose for £4 million, this is the game. Rovers, this is the game. Yeah. And it's very black and white, and it's accessible. At the moment, it's all if they win, if they lose.
Who has a safety net? Who doesn't?
I get what you're saying. Yeah.
All that stuff. Meanwhile, Premier League teams going through pre-season. Heung-min Son leaving Spurs.
I know. End of an era.
He's going to go to Los Angeles FC for around 20 million sterling. 10 years at Spurs. And he announced in Seoul, where they were playing Newcastle. I think it's good timing. He's 33 now. He just looked like the guy he is. He has made a lot of hard runs in his life.
He got one in the Europa League final where he just couldn't
run.
Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that was the moment, I think, when it was like, maybe it's time for it.
But he's been an amazing player.
Yeah.
So good. So good. James Maddison got a bad injury in that game as well, which kind of poo-pooed the party a little bit. So he's gone. Manchester City are having their pre-season tour, or Manchester United, having their pre-season tour of the States. And what was interesting about this over the last week or so is they were playing games, and it seemed playing quite well. And I was seeing snapshots of like the NBC crew, be it Tim Howard or Graham Lasso or Robbie Earl, saying, listen, long way to go. This is the best they've been over Amber. Like, this is really good. And Robbie Earl was talking about the culture seems to have shifted. So they played Everton last night. Bruno Fernandes, a lazy performance is how he described it. And then he said, the squad's improving, but we need much more competition for places. So just a short, sharp bursting of the balloon that was starting to inflate a little bit. Ruben Amorim was asked about Fernandes, saying it was lazy. He said, I'm happy for the players to have that feeling. It's saying they understand the situation. I mean, I think that everyone understands the situation, but it was a false dawn, it turned out. They're 2 pre-season games before the Everton one.
So I think the Premier League pre-seasons, like, they just do all such mad schedules now. I can't recall too many examples in recent seasons where it's like, geez, they've been flying in pre-season and they've brought it into the season. I think it's just impossible. Yeah. It's just, I feel like one of the years under Ten Hag, I remember the media covering the tour, and some of the real Manchester United voices were
this is looking good.
Oh, this is looking good. But in 2-3 weeks, this
is the Premier League summer series. It's like 3 double headers at America. And I caught it.
Yeah,
I was walking past the pub and I saw it, and I was like, is this something I should be watching? It was kind of jarred with me. I was like, this seems like a real match. But then, no, it was some sort of...
Yeah. Liverpool yesterday did a double header at Anfield. Did you see this?
So they're getting a lot of coverage on my Twitter.
They played Athletic Club twice in one day to give as many players as possible game time. So there was a game at 5 o'clock and a game at 8 o'clock. and basically the turnstiles shut just after the start of the first match. GAA doubleheaders take note. So you had to be in the ground or you couldn't go to the 8 o'clock game. So they played Athletic Club twice, beat them 4-1 and 3-2, and shut the turnstiles after the first match started, which was kind of novel. The headline out of that is Rio Ngoma, who was 16, in the second minute of the first match, picked up the ball on the halfway line, ran pretty much unopposed, but still ran and scored at 16. Liverpool snatched him from Chelsea last summer, which Chelsea were livid about. So he sort of made his mark, and Anfield now chance Rio from the Kop quite a lot. They still have 110 million on the table for Isak, but that's kind of the pre-season tumbling along. We previewed the All-Ireland football final with Nadine Doherty and Noel Healy on Friday, and there was a worry, I think in particular on Nadine's part, that this could go the way of the 3 other Dublin Meath games this year, and it very much did. Like Dublin, 2 16 to 10 points, a 12-point hammering really, but I guess the really frustrating thing is it was just done so early. Dublin led by 1-2 to no score early on. There was another period in the first half where they scored 1-5 to no response. So they led by 11 at half time in front of 48,000 people at Croke Park. And look, it's amazing for them, a second in 3 years. New management, Derek Murray and Paul Casey. Used over 30 players in the 8 games. But it was obviously disappointing final. It was a spectacle.
It was done after 10 minutes. Yeah. In reality, like Meath kicked some really poor wides early on, and a few efforts dropped short. Dublin scored their early goal, and the way they were scoring and moving through Meath with ease, just didn't seem to be any way back. So it was a very disappointing contest. Like you said, it kind of foreshadowed in the preview on Friday. Also, like, frustrating him to watch. Like, the referee, I just thought was so involved. Like, every bit of...
The tackle in ladies football is a massive problem now.
Yeah, it is.
It's just, they don't know, they just need to get a grip of this.
Just you're playing the whole game with the referee just, like, halting play, giving frees. It doesn't allow much flow to the game.
Yeah, like, it's virtually no contact, which is... they're going to have to do something. All the players are so frustrated, and there's no consistency. I was speaking to someone who watched all 3 games. You know, one referee's version versus another is poles apart.
Yeah, and to be honest, like, referees in Gaelic football can be, fussy and interrupt a lot as well. But it just, I don't know, it's really jarred in All-Ireland final. Contrasting when, like, say, Dublin played Kerry a couple of years ago and David Goff was letting a lot of, like, really physical challenges go.
Yeah.
Very different.
That chat with Nadine and Noel is worth a listen, by the way, if you're interested in the LGFA generally, because we previewed the final towards the end, but a lot of the first part of it is about just, it finds itself in a tricky enough spot now. It's been an average season, that was Nadine's strong sense. The group stage is very predictable. Quarterfinal stage is very one-sided. Semi-finals okay, and now a very one-sided final. So it's been a poor year, not least next to the men's game, playing the new rules, which have just like blossomed into something spectacular. And so we're also seeing very defensive tactics increasingly in the ladies' game. And the weaker teams are not getting up the pitch when they do turn the ball over. So it's leading to kind of drab affairs. And you've got your 40 best players over an AFLW. You think you'd take 40 players out of the men's game? I know some of them are still here and still playing, but it's kind of in an interesting spot, I think, the ladies' football scene, based on that chat with Nadine and Noel. And one last thing to mention. It would seem that we had one of the greatest test matches in cricket history over the weekend, England against India. So the series has finished 2-2. 25 days of outstanding sporting theatre, I read. So India had their narrowest ever win of a test match. And you happened to be watching this anyway. You didn't just flick on for the last 5 minutes like a lot of people.
Because the Dublin Meath game was done and dusted at half time, it gave me more time to watch cricket on Sunday afternoon as well.
This is a man with too much time in his hands. So it got to an extraordinary stage where England needed 17 runs to reach their target of 374. And Chris Wokes came out with his arm in a sling to support Gus Atkinson. And, they started eating into those 17 runs and then eventually bowled out and euphoria. So it was phenomenal.
Yeah, so the backstory was England were set a target of 374 in their last innings to chase, which is high. Like, it would be rare. I think it would have been their second highest ever run chase. Okay. They got to 300 for 3. So I think betting and running, they were 50-1 on at that stage. So they had it sewn up. Like, they'd won the test series.
300 for 3?
They were 300 for 3. And they finished, 3-6-7 all out. Like, so that shows the kind of the theatrical collapse that followed where like
Was it a collapse or did India go into a wonderful overdrive?
it was both.
Okay.
It was both.
I guess it would have to be.
Mohammad Siraj was the kind of hero of the bowler for India. He actually was the villain initially because he could have caught Harry Brook on the Sunday, but he fumbled it for a 6 and he ended up getting a century, which put England basically on the cusp of winning this unbelievable Test series. But the backstory was Chris Wokes, who basically dislocated / broke his shoulder trying to field the ball earlier. You can't have substitutions in Test cricket. So that's why he had to go out, or else England would have been out. You know, so he had to go out with a sling on, even though he couldn't actually bat.
But he had to run on certain
I
occasions.
didn't know that. You can't make substitutions.
Can't make substitutions, yeah.
It's mad.
And even Ben Stokes, the England captain, afterwards was asked, should this prompt finally substitutions? He's like, absolutely not. I think it would be disgraceful.
Test match cricket.
It's just like
Test match cricket.
It's the tradition of the tradition of the game. This is
we're not budging.
Seemingly, talking to someone who I know who follows cricket quite closely, it would be open to manipulation. But I thought, is that not the same in any sport? You know, injuries. Like you just take them.
Oh yeah, I know. Then someone would have a fake injury.
Yeah, fake injury to get in maybe a better player for a certain pitch or what have you. But it came down to 7 runs. Sorry, I think 7 runs needed was it at the end, but a draw would have won England the series. So they were 1 strike away, 1 6 away from winning from a match.
So the greatest series since like
they're saying since 05 in the Ashes. Yeah, so there's been bad blood throughout the series. There's been kind of words exchanged. Ben Stokes in the previous test, it looked like it was going to be a draw, and he went out to shake hands and say, "Look, no one's going to win this test. Let's get on to the next one." But 2 of the Indian batsmen were close to centuries, so they were like, "Now we're playing on." And that was apparently a really bad blood stemming from that. One of the Indian batsmen had broken his foot earlier, and he had to keep playing as well because there's no substitution rules in one of the previous tests. And all the games, I think, came down to very fine margins at the end. And then yesterday was just crazy. Like seeing Wokes come out with his arm and his jumper in his sling was crazy. So it's funny, like for people who like, say, the Crucible or snooker, that kind of tension and tactical, nature and just the high drama, like Test cricket is kind of similar when it's at its best.
I think it's probably one of those sports that, like, attention span wise, you can sort of have it on.
Oh, 100%.
You know what I mean? I think there's very little sporting events that are like that now. Sometimes your attention span is distracted, but it's nice sometimes to have an event you can have on.
It's lovely.
I think snooker for me is a little bit like that. You can just leave, and then this frame might be getting interesting, but you can hear the
golf is like
that. Hear the rhythm.
I think people are always asking, does Test cricket have a place? Like the IPL, one day T20. It's all about making the game shorter, and then you see like that, and you're like, this has been building over 5 weeks to this moment when a guy with a broken arm coming out the bat. It's like, it's unbelievable.
Worth the wait.
Yeah, kind of. Like it's funny. Like
what channel was it on, as a matter of interest?
Sky Sports.
Oh, because it's moving to TNT now. I saw.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah.
Because the Sky coverage is brilliant. Like their cricket coverage is class.
Right.
I'm not a huge cricket fan. I'm not trying to put myself out as some unbelievable cricket fan, but I do like some of the Test series, and I think
probably had a global TV audience of hundreds of millions.
Sure,
I would imagine.
And like even the crowd, obviously the big Indian population in London, like the crowd for that last ball was huge.
I'm glad you said that because I
think it was in New Delhi, like
because it's funny. I read about like a febrile Indian atmosphere. I was thinking at the Oval, but
the Indian crowd were raucous. Like it was.
Okay.
And the bowler was like this pantomime villain, Mohammad Siraj, who got the last out, and it was just compelling.
So they just walk off 2-2.
2-2 with 1 draw, yeah.
So that's the tradition. Like the Americans are looking at this going, what?
Yeah, well,
what are you talking about here?
Well, like the Ashes, I think the last 2 Ashes series in the UK have finished in draws. Australia retained the little urn because they had won the ones in Australia. So the Ashes is actually taking place in Australia in December now, so for anyone who's got a taste from this little synopsis might want to tune in.
Because you see some of these Premier League tour games, they just have to put in penalty shootouts. Like there's mandatory penalty shootouts being put in some of them. Because it's just like, sorry, this is not a satisfactory resolution.
Paid a lot of money.
We paid for outcomes here.
We were talking about the Lions store, like in 2017 when the Lions All Blacks game ended. I think everyone thought extra time was coming. And then the captains are explaining, no, you have to lift the cup with one hand each. And it was like, this is very unsatisfactory. We've been waiting 12 years for this.
Yeah.
Tradition. That's
I liked the
tradition. Well, the Lions refused to add in extra time this time. So if it had happened,
great tradition.
But their selling point is tradition.
Yes, exactly.
If they start to introduce contemporary elements to it, then they're a bit like, why are we actually doing this?
The Lions are the great innovators of the game. But not really.
No, you have to. That is your brand. You have to stick with that. That is the brand.
Yeah.
Tradition.
Alrighty, I think we're pretty much done. Yeah, I think we're done. Happy?
I'm always happy, Joe.
That's your brand.
Yeah. Yeah, cantankerous.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No, always good having you in. Dan McDonnell.
I wouldn't say not at all.
Dan McDonnell, thank you very much.
Thank
that was
you.
great. And Will, we will reconvene.
Thanks, Joe.
Thanks, everyone.